Charlene, thank you for being a part of this wonderful initiative. Welcome to Design Rendezvous, and I'm just so excited to have you over. Given the fact that I only know you for like a month, and I wonder why I haven't known you for all these years. So I'm just so excited that we are finally here talking about the things that matter to you and to me. So welcome again.
Thank you so much, Payal. Again, I'm humbled to be here. Really thankful to have this space of a design discourse to have with you on something that I am really passionate about, and I can see that you are also really passionate about. So thank you for having me.
Oh, absolutely, my pleasure. So let me just jump straight into it, Charlene. In one of the articles, you describe yourself as a climate designer. Yeah, and I'm going to read this out. He says, a climate designer who uses design to facilitate better ways of being with each other and the natural world. Please tell us more about this, because when I read climate designer, logically, yes, I could, piece, the pieces and, kind of logically make myself feel okay, I know what this means, but I'm sure that I don't, and I'm glad that the people who might watch this or will watch this will also get a glimpse into it.
So I think that's a really good question, because climate designer as a term is pretty new. Just like how UI UX designers was not really well known 15 years ago. So hopefully climate designers will catch on and it'll be an official thing. But for now, to explain what a climate designer is, or who a climate designer is. A climate designer is any designer who is actively taking climate action. So there are two parts to that, right? One is the designer and one is the climate action. So designer is an architect, a print designer, a fabric designer, an urban planner, a design strategist, branding, and everything in between, even an educator, right? A design educator. So any kind of designer or creator, even an artist, is included in this. And climate action is actively taking charge of doing something about the climate. And when we talk about the climate, it's both the environmental and social aspects of the challenge that we face. So, in terms of the environment, that, it's all the species, natural, water bodies, land, air, flora, fauna, all of those good things. But when it comes to society, which is a huge part around the sustainability and climate action discourse, we really have to look at history, culture, philosophies, politics, economics. All of it is intertwined, because you really can't have one without the other, right? You have huge solar, wind power, solar and wind projects set up that displace indigenous communities. That's not sustainable, that's not ethical. And so really working to find the middle ground where we're doing more good than bad in what we design. And just a real world example is that when I was working with a couple of friends who are in Bombay, and during the pandemic, a friend's friend, he's from the Kohli community, the Kohli fishing community in Bombay. And, with the lockdown, they kind of lost their livelihood. And so we started looking at how we can help that community, right? And it was a very grassroots initiative. And then we also started looking at sustainable and traceable fishing practices and bringing technology into that. And so I came in as a brand strategist and communication strategist, and tried to create this narrative not only for the company or the organization that we were trying to set up, but also for the larger public, is that how do we navigate being responsible for the environment while also ensuring that these communities who live off the land and the sea can sustain themselves.
I think this example, the Kohli example that you shared with me right now, has this thick underlying layer of responsibility. It is not the one-off consumeristic brand communication work that you do, right? It's not one of those, so to say, jobs that we take on. And with responsibility, I believe, and because I think as a subject that the area of work that you deal with kind of encourages you to be more empathetic, encourages you to be more inclusive of the things that might not interest you, but hey, it's a part of it. All of us are connected.
Hopefully,
and we all have to make,
because then you could go the other way and be completely jaded and destroyed by the enormity of the challenge, because that happens as well. So I don't know if you're aware, but climate anxiety is an actual thing now. And so I know that sometimes I suffer from it, where it's just, you just don't feel like getting out of bed because like the world is falling apart. And for those who are empathetic, for those who do get affected by melting ice caps, burning forests, displaced communities, inequity in vaccine distribution around the world, and the displacement of the lower economic strata of society, it all comes at you, right? Because you're empathetic, because you care, and that has resulted in an increase in climate anxiety. And so you can look it up, it's actually a thing. Yep, it's happening.
Wow, I'm learning, and I'm going to Google all these interesting words, Charlene, and it's a dangerous thing because you've just like asked me to spend my weekend doing this. So moving to to a framework that you have introduced. Okay, it's called the Compassionate Systems Design, which I think is fascinating, but I think it is the need of the hour. But I think just talk won't do, or just looking at a framework won't help. So tell us about what this framework is about and how can organizations actually make use of it.
So in a nutshell, compassionate systems design is this framework that I developed to help build sustainable cultures. And so what this framework does is it creates a multi-dimensional dialogue that's framed in, for now, a curriculum for high school students to use compassion and reflection. A compassionate and reflective model of value assessment and cultural recreation, right? To together, collaboratively reimagine how to sustainably celebrate who they are while being mindful of the impact it has on other interdependent communities and the ecosystem. So that's a lot that's in there, right? You have the compassionate part, you have the systems design part, you have cultural celebrations, which is like this bizarre thing to kind of include in sustainability, but there was a thought process, right? And like how usually all my explorations happen, it happens from a place of internal reflection and self-critique, right? I started questioning, how come I can't make the permanent lifestyle changes that I know are needed, right, to lower my carbon footprint, even though I have all the scientific data and information that's needed, right? But there's something that's not happening. And what I realized is, besides, the fabric of my own willpower, it's also my culture. And culture is a way of being, right? Going back to, what you had said earlier, it's how you live. It's our social fabric and what you choose to believe in, your values, and all of it intertwined. And so I started to look at that, and I'm like, yeah, it's my culture that's kind of not making excuses, but it's who I am, right? And then there's that debate: who am I authentically, and what is the impact that that is having on the environment? Because you have these top-down solutions that are thrown at the larger public, saying, don't use plastic bags, use a paper bag, don't use a straw, take a metal straw, all of those superficial things that sometimes you do, sometimes you don't do, but it really doesn't connect with who you are as a person. So that's something that I started to think about, and I was like, how do I start to really build, or how do we start to really build authentic values, right? That are, like I said, authentic to ourselves as individuals, but also good for the planet and extended communities. Because again, it's a system, right? Because when you think of culture, it can go two ways, right? It can be my culture, right? Which is dangerous, as we've seen many, many times. But then when you are giving so much and you're changing, people are averse to a loss of their identity. And like, don't make me do that. Why are you forcing me to do that? I don't want to be vegan, or I don't want to use that plastic bag. It's being forced on you, and that doesn't stick. But what sticks is culture, right? That's the long haul. So I started investigating that, and what I kind of focused on are cultural celebrations, because that is this amazing moment of potential brotherhood, sisterhood, community. We have great emotional connections with that time and space. Great, it's a perfect, rich, positive experience. How can we leverage that to induce and build in sustainable ways of being and celebrating and things like that? So that's kind of why I chose culture. And compassion is the important part, right? Because with culture, not myopic, but being more inclusive and things like that, is about really trying to figure out and debate, what are you comfortable with sacrificing or redistributing, so that there is the least harm and the most good, an outcome for you, an interconnected community, and the environment. I've picked three things in this framework. And so people participating or using this framework would go through the process of a basic foundation of understanding what sustainability is, climate change is, what kind of mindsets you need to be able to start addressing this. And I think one of the key points for me is that sustainability is a process. It's not an end goal, right? It's something that is continuous, because you do something here, it affects something there, and then you have to go there, and so it's like life, right? It's a journey, it's never ending. And so that's one of the things that I really try to focus on, is building mindsets before getting into this program, and before starting this framework. And once you're in it, like I said, it's not prescriptive, and the participants, say the high school students or anyone else, look within themselves to identify who they are, what are their real values, and look at their impact, be really reflective about their practices, and work with the community and each other to kind of find ways forward and test and learn.
And I really like the fact that you touched upon sustainability. And I know you can't talk about climate and then not talk about sustainability. But I think that just how design thinking was this buzzword a couple of years ago, now it is sustainability. And I'm sure there are 100 other words that are, kind of looping around. But I still feel like in our culture, which is primarily India, the word sustainability is so limited. The definition is so limited. It's about a recycling bag, or a metal straw, like you just said, right? It is not really understanding that it is a decision to live in a sustainable manner. Whether it is about how you eat, and how much you discard, and what does your garbage look like, and what are the clothes you wear. So it's really like a lifestyle ecosystem, right? Now what I want to discuss is, as a designer, yeah, what, and when the designer is designing, say anything for that matter, and let's just say UI UX or whatever they want to design, yeah, what are the core tenets of sustainability according to you, for a design?
So I think for me, for a designer who's looking to start work, in sustainable design in any of its forms, I think it's really important to ask yourself if you are willing to do the work, willing to get shot down, willing to fail, willing to fight an uphill battle and persist despite the enormity of the challenge at hand. So that's something that I think is really important. It doesn't matter how you do what you do, what tools you use to design. Design is everywhere, right? It's the mindset and the determination to go out and say, you know what, I'm just going to do it. You know why? Because honestly, inaction is what's killing us. The fact that you're saying it's not my job is why we are in this position, because the politicians should do it, or the activists should do it, or the marine biologists should do it, or the scientists should do it, or the waste management should do it. No, dude, you're the designer. You are literally designing the world around you. You know how awesome you are and how responsible you should feel for everything that you put out there. Because designers, and this is something that's also really important to realize, that we are not at the end of the chain of command, right? At the end of the project life cycle. We are at the beginning, middle, and end, right? We are everywhere, and we need to start acting like we are and that we deserve to be there, and take responsibility for what we're producing: print, product, structures, digital. Everything has an impact. And like I said, it's a tough responsibility. Lots of anxiety and existential crisis comes along with it. But the fact that you can actually make a difference somewhere, no matter what, is quite rewarding as well.
And I'm so glad you touched upon areas that nobody really talks about. The moment you say sustainability, it's like this shiny word that people want to associate themselves with, but they really have no clue of. And this is also from a student level, to a senior level. It's across the chain. And I feel like the things that you mentioned about perseverance, and it's about being able to face failure, and to not be let down, because the majority of the world doesn't really get what you're doing, and they always will question as to why are you doing this, right? And to move this conversation into the foundation of it all, which is our education. And I strongly believe it's one of the reasons why I also teach, and I love to teach, because it is the shortcut to ensuring that facets of the world are going to change sometime in the future.
Yeah, I completely agree. But I also say, get them when they're young.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure they're like, yeah, Payal, you do. Anyway. but like to go back to how do you get them when they're young, right? And that's the question really. I don't think so. I know of institutes in India that teach sustainability design in a holistic manner. It is largely like architecture or those disciplines, and you have that one little curriculum or credits that you have to take care of, right? But when it comes to urban, branding, climate, name it, yeah. When we start understanding that the foundation is education, how can design institutes in their own limited way teach sustainability or climate awareness in their design, in all the curriculums that they set, and you being one of them, please tell us about that from this culture perspective.
So that's, and I completely agree. My mom is a kindergarten teacher. She's retired now. My sister is a special educator and reading therapist, and I completely respect the profession of teaching, and the power that education has and knowledge has. And I guess that's why I naturally gravitated towards creating an educational framework and now teach at RISD as well. That's something that I am passionate about as well. And so I think with design education, again, it comes down to having those really tough discussions around, I think what designers are so good at is trying to solve problems, right? We're always trying to fix something, make it better, and they need this, let's make an app for it, or this needs to be fixed. It's lovely, but when it comes to complex systemic challenges like climate change, environmental issues, one app is not gonna solve it, right? And no one solution, no one band-aid that we can design so beautifully with the cleanest lines, is going to solve that problem. And I think design institutions and design educators need to change the definition of a designer and their place in the creation of the world around us. We don't make things look pretty. I'm going to change that. We don't just make things look pretty. We do more than that. We should be doing more than that. We are facilitators. We are thinkers. We see potential where there is none. We can communicate across languages, boundaries, mindsets, and so that's a designer. And for us to acknowledge that first, right? To have educators tell a young designer, you are more than just a poster maker, right? You can strategize, you can impact, and then great, right? You have all this power. But then comes ethics, which is so important. I remember giving a talk at a college on climate change and communication, and one of the media students who's studying journalism was like, but shouldn't we just give the readers what they want? That's our job. And I was like, you could. That is completely an option. And that's a choice. You choose to do that. I can't tell you no. Someone wants to make money. You can do that. I can't stop you. It is an option. But it is an option of the privileged who are fortunate enough to not feel the impacts of their inaction and apathy towards what's happening around us. I am privileged. in that way, right? I am not living on the coastline, where the earth is eroding beneath me, right? I am not a climate refugee being displaced. So I have that privilege, but I'm hoping that I can use that to do something about it. So it really is a choice, but I think for educators to show them that this is what it is. These are the opportunities that you have, and hopefully, they'll all be climate designers at the end of it.
Yay! I cannot wait for my profile to change. Or maybe I can just go with I want to be climate designer. Start there. No, so I think I really like, what you spoke of, the educator being evolved, and hence the education needs to facilitate that. It is really that mindset that you spoke of, the education that, forms the basis of it all. And, hopefully sustainability is not this shiny, fancy word that we use, but something that we actually act upon. And then we can see that, difference in the world around us because we could act on it, not because we designed it. There's a huge difference, and I think I'm so grateful that I could speak to you. And I want to thank you for your time and, the energies that you have so passionately, shared on this session, and I'm hoping to see you again very soon. So thank you so much,
definitely,
Charlene.
Payal. Thank you so much. This was really fun, and I hope to have many more opportunities to enthusiastically talk about the climate, about design, about changing mindsets, and hopefully making things better than how we, left it before. So
Yes, thank you.
Thanks so much. Bye.